by the State Council
今天，
Information
国务院新闻
Office.
办公室发布
Today,
中国
the
应对气候
SCIO
变化的
is
政策与行动白皮
announcing
书。
the White Paper Responding to Climate Change, China's Policies and Actions.
同时，我们举行这场新闻发布会，
And we're
向大家
holding
介绍和
this
解
press
读白皮
conference
书的主要内容。
to give you an elaboration on the main content of the White Paper. The White Paper is acting on Xi Jinping thought on ecological civilization. It gives a comprehensive review on China's policies, actions, and achievements since the 18th Party Congress. It elaborates on China's positions and initiatives on responding to climate change. It has a totally it has 19,000 characters with 4 parts in the main content, covering China's new responses to climate change, implementing a national strategy of actively responding to climate change, significant changes in China's response to climate change, and building a fair and rational global climate governance system for win-win results. It will be translated into English, French, German, Spanish, Arabic, and Japanese, and will be published by the People's Press and Foreign Languages Press. To help you have a better and more accurate understanding of the White Paper, today we have the honor to have Vice Minister Ye Ming of Ecology and Environment and leader of the Department of Climate Response of the Ministry of Ecology and Environment. They will take your questions on climate change. Minister Ye, please. Thank you, moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference on the release of the White Paper Responding to Climate Change, Policies and Actions of China. Let me take this opportunity to thank all friends from the media for the long-term support and care for China's response to climate change. Climate change is a serious challenge facing all mankind. It requires all countries in the world to work together and help each other out to cope with it together. Addressing climate change has a bearing on the sustainable development of the Chinese nation and the future and destiny of all mankind. As an active promoter and firm practitioner of climate action, China has always attached great importance to climate change and regards climate change as an important part of the advancement of ecological civilization and as an important way to promote the transformation of development mode and achieve sustainable development. Over the years, we have stayed committed to the guidance of Xi Jinping thought on ecological civilization and firmly implemented the national strategy to actively respond to climate change and achieved remarkable results. On the basis of comprehensively reviewing the work of addressing climate change, we organized the compilation of the White Paper Responding to Climate Change, Policies and Actions. This is also the second time since 2011 that China has issued a White Paper on China's response to climate change from the national level. The White Paper includes China's new concept of addressing climate change, the implementation of a national strategy to actively address climate change, the historic changes in China's response to climate change, and the establishment of a fair, rational, and win-win global climate governance system, as was mentioned by the moderator. It elaborates on China's vision and policy actions in addressing climate change since the 18th CPC National Congress, especially during the 13th five-year plan period, showcases the progress and effects as well as China's outstanding contributions to global climate governance. It reflects China's propositions, wisdom, and plans to deal with climate change systematically. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, China has continued to deepen its efforts to address climate change, achieving a significant reduction in carbon emission intensity, continuous optimization of energy and industrial structure, continuous improvement of low-carbon development systems and mechanisms, solid progress in the construction of a national carbon market, region-specific low-carbon development models, stronger adaptation ability, and higher awareness for green and low-carbon development. At the same time, the Chinese government actively and constructively participates in global climate governance. We adhere to the principles of multilateralism and common but differentiated responsibilities, attach great importance to international cooperation in addressing climate change, actively participate in international negotiations on climate change, deepen South-South cooperation on climate change, promote the conclusion and speed up implementation of the Paris Agreement, shape a new pattern of global climate governance with China vision and China practice, and gradually become an important participant, contributor, and leader in the development of global ecological civilization. In 2020, President Xi Jinping made a major announcement of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, demonstrating China's firm determination to take the path of green and low-carbon development and join hands with the international community to tackle climate change. This is a major strategic decision made by the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at the core, coordinating the overall domestic and international situations and after careful consideration. In the next step, we will resolutely implement relevant decisions and arrangements and continue to promote new progress in addressing climate change. The UNFCCC COP26 will be held in Glasgow, the UK. COP26 will complete the negotiation on the remaining issues of the implementation rules of the Paris Agreement, and global climate governance will enter a new era as it continues to embark on a new journey of building a modern socialist country in an all-round way, entering a critical period of comprehensive green transformation of economic and social development. At such a period, the release of this white paper is crucial to enhance domestic and international understanding of China's climate action and share Chinese wisdom and solutions. Responding to climate change is a common cause of mankind. China will continue to implement the national strategy to actively respond to climate change, incorporate carbon peaking and carbon neutrality into the overall layout of ecological civilization development, make every effort to tackle climate change under the new situation, and will work with the international community to promote the comprehensive, balanced, and effective implementation of the Paris Agreement and jointly build a fair, reasonable, cooperative, and win-win global climate governance system and start a new journey of global response to climate change. These are the opening remarks, and now my colleague, Director General Sun, and I would be happy to take your questions. Well, thank you, Minister Ye. Now the floor is open for questions. Please identify yourselves before asking the question.
谢谢。我是中央广播电视总台央视记者。
Thank you.
我的问题是呢，
With
今天发
CCTV,
布的
my
这个应
question
对气候变化
is
白皮书，
for the white
它
paper
跟以往
that is
相
to be
比有什么
released
不同
today. What
另外一个问题就是
how is it
我国
different
目前
from
的面临的挑战
greatest
也是
opportunities
谢
and
谢。
challenges for China's response to climate change?
谢谢你。
On the white
刚才
paper
也跟大家通报了。
and actions on climate change
此后
2011.
2012年至2020
Between
年，
2012 and 2020, we have
中国应对气候
released
变化的
the
政策
annual
情报我
report
国
to
应
introduce
对气候变化的
China's
进展
progress
气候
at
变
its
化工
core,
作
has attached
实施
great
积极应对
importance
气候变化
to
国家
addressing
战
climate change,
转折
general
性
and profound
全局性的
changes
变化
in the approaches
取得了
and practice.
中国
Full
应对气候
picture
变化的
of
新理念、
General
新思想
Secretary Xi
应
Jinping,
对气候
China's
变化
policy
政策措
measures
施
and
和
achievements
成效
on addressing climate change
系统梳理
plan period,
充分
and gave a
体现我国
systematic
为
review
应对
for
党
addressing climate change,
应对气候
and
变化
shows
国际
China's
责任
commitment to
推
its
动中国
also
对全球气候治
reiterates
理的立场
China's
主张，
position on the
对国
global
际社会
to
公平合理
build a fair
合作共赢的
challenges.
绿色低碳发展。
Green
这是
and
世
low
界潮
carbon
流之一
economic growth drivers and development
战略
approach
机遇
and taken targeted measures.
用
It is
高质量
seeing
发展
addressing climate change
和生态
as an
环境
important
高水平
tool
保护
for
的
promoting
重要
high
抓手
quality development and
体现
high
了
level
我国
protection
主动
of
承
the
担
environment,
因近年来
future for mankind. In recent years, China has taken a series of improved the energy mix, increased energy efficiency, and Forest Car 20. The carbon dioxide emission per unit of GDP of China was reduced by 48.4%. PEP level design has been improved, market mechanisms being advanced, and public awareness been faced with difficulties and challenges in addressing climate change. The world is facing unprecedented challenging international situation in addressing climate change. China plans to use with more challenging task of energy and industrial transition. China will challenges including economic development, improving people's security. On top of our basic capacity of China in addressing climate change, still have some weak links and capability to achieve the task of carbon neutrality and carbon peak. Moving forward, we will be based on a new and strike balance between development and emission reduction. They include carbon peak and neutrality, prioritizing ecological conservation, committed to implementing and contribute to addressing climate change. Thank you. Next. Is China optimistic about solving the Article 6 of Paris? Minister Ye, and thank you for your question. The negotiation of the rulebook of Paris Agreement system. This is the precondition for parties to fully and effectively implement communities' trust, and multilaterals need to act in a constructive and flexible, stick to the nature of national retrogressive position. First, for adaptation of developed, the fund provided by developed countries is particularly, we hope that developed countries can be active and these shall not be asked to adjust their NDC out of their NDCs. But China also understands that some parties, this factors such as the time parties can be asked to clarify what their NDCs cover before participating in market system cooperation. We hope that we can ensure the confidence and active participation of private sector in market allowed to use their pre-2020 CER to complete, and we are willing to discuss some compromised approaches. The COP26 presidents follow the rules of open, driven, and consensus building. The 6 can complete the negotiations of the rules book. Thank you.
好，请大家继续提问。
Next question, please.
中间第2排这位男士。
With People's Daily, in China's efforts to fight climate change,
China attaches great importance to addressing climate change. In regards climate responses to adjust industrial structure, optimize energy structures are made in various areas. First, greenhouse 18.8% compared to 2015 and 48.4% lower than 2005, exceeding the 40 to 45% emissions. Second, the optimization of the energy structure has achieved an increase of 8.5 percentage points from 2005. Reliance on coal consumption has dropped significantly, and energy structure optimization has achieved significant results. Third, the continuous improvement of the national carbon market. On July 16, 2021, the National Carbon Emissions Trading Market officially launched and started trading. The first compliance cycle of the market included 2,162 key emission units in the power generation industry, covering more than 4.5 billion tons of carbon emissions each year, making it the world's largest carbon market covering greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, China's low-carbon pilot demonstration to the general public has also been continuously improving. While doing a good job of domestic response to climate change, we are also actively participating in global climate governance China has played a historic role in promoting the conclusion and entry into force of the Paris Agreement and the formulation of the implementation guidelines. We actively carry out South-South cooperation in addressing climate change to help other developing countries, especially the least developing countries, African countries, and small island countries. To increase, Xi Jinping made a major announcement of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. The CPC Central Committee made important arrangements for carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. Opinions of the CPC Central Committee and the State Council on the complete, accurate, and comprehensive implementation of the new development concept and achieving carbon peaking and carbon neutrality have just been released recently, and the 1+N policy framework is being formed at a faster pace. In the next step, we will continue to implement the decisions and deployments of the CPC Central Committee and State Council. First, we will actively implement climate goals in the 14th Five-Year Plan and break down the 18% binding target into regions with stronger supervision. Second is to promote the implementation of the carbon peaking action and promote the implementation of the 1+N policy system and advance the development of green low-carbon circular development. Third is to step up preparation and promulgation of the implementation plan for pollution reduction and carbon reduction synergy. Fourth, continue to improve the national carbon market and work with relevant departments to roll out the provisional regulation on carbon trading as quickly as possible and gradually expand the market coverage to more high-emission industries based on the sound operation of the market in the power generation industry. Fifth is to strengthen the construction of relevant systems and mechanisms to control carbon intensity and carbon emission and implement long-term mechanisms for the statistics and the management of greenhouse gas statistics. Sixth is to coordinate efforts to address climate change and ecological environmental protection. Seventh is to improve public awareness for low carbon and green development. Eighth is to formulate the National Climate Strategy 2035 and strengthen monitoring and assessment. And ninth is to continue to take an active part in international negotiations on climate and continue to expand South-South cooperation on climate change. Thank you. Next question.
谢谢。封面新闻记者提问。习总书记曾经说
With the cover news, President Xi Jinping used to say that addressing climate change is something we do on our own, not something we are asked to do. So my question is, what is the significance of climate change to China's economic and social development? President Xi stressed at multiple occasions that responding to climate change is not something we are asked to do, but something we do on our own initiative. It is what China's development requires. It is also what we need to do to build a community with a shared future for mankind. China's economy is shifting toward a period of high-quality development. Addressing climate change is an important tool for us to advance high-quality development. By advancing green, low-carbon and circular development and building a low-carbon energy structure and advocate a low-carbon lifestyle and adjust the structures of energy, transport, and other industries, these efforts will continue to inject new impetus to economic development. Climate response is also an important part of environmental protection and ecological protection, and it forms strong synergy with environmental protection. It can improve the environment from the source and raise the efficiency of environmental protection and lower the cost of environmental protection. Climate response is also China's contribution to the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. China upholds multilateralism and principles including common but differentiated responsibility. China actively shapes and leads global climate governance and works for the comprehensive, balanced, and effective implementation of the Paris Agreement. China advocates for the interests of developing countries and works to shape the global climate governance system towards a fairer, more rational, and more win-win direction, and work for the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. To do a good job in climate change would also go a long way towards implementing the new development paradigm and advancing the new path of high-quality development. This is a challenge, but also, more importantly, an opportunity for China, the world's biggest developing country. Its development still remains unbalanced and inadequate, and we face a series of heavy tasks of addressing environmental pollution and other issues. That means we need to be realistic when we are working to achieve carbon peaking and carbon neutrality, and base our efforts on China's national conditions and take coordinated efforts to make arrangements on a science-based and steady manner. At the same time, we are clearly aware that we need to take all sorts of measures, tap the potential of new forms of businesses and new industries, and that is an important driving force for high-quality development, and this will create new drivers of green and low-carbon growth and contribute to economic transformation. Thank you.
好，下一个问题。
Next
这边这
question.
位外国记者。
Thank you. Tom Cheshire, Sky News. China burns more coal than the rest of the world combined. It's still adding to that coal power, and in the document released yesterday, you said you'll only gradually reduce that at the same time as you're asking other countries to drastically reduce their emissions. How long will that peak of coal use last, and why is apparently China prioritizing short-term economic growth over the future of the planet? And secondly, we've heard about the leadership of President Xi Jinping. Will he be attending COP26? And if not, why not? Thank you.
请翻译一下问题。
英国天空新闻频道记者：中国的煤炭消耗量是世界其他国家的总和还要多。中国依然在持续的发展煤电产业。在今天的白皮书当中提到了中国将逐渐削减煤炭的使用和消费。那么我的问题是，在与此同时，中国却在要求其他的国家减少煤炭的使用和减少碳排放。中国的煤炭使用什么时候能够达到峰值？中国是否愿意为了星球的未来牺牲一些短期的利益？第二个问题是，习近平主席是否会出席第26次缔约方大会？如果是或者不是的话，会是什么原因？谢谢。
谢谢。习近平主席是否参加那个 COP26 大会啊
？Regarding whether President Xi Jinping will be attending COP26, the Foreign Ministry will be responsible for giving you an answer. On your question about coal consumption and coal development, this is something that people are watching very closely. And Director General Sun will be answering your question. Thank you, Minister, and thank you for the question.
比较长，关于这个，我想主要是关注这个近期的一些情况啊，也同时也提到。
My answer will be focusing on what has been happening recently, as well as the relations between short-term and long-term efforts. I will try to be concise in my answer.
能源呢是 经济社会发展和我们这个群众生活
Energy is
基础的保障
a basic
条件
guarantee and precondition for economic and social development and people's lives.
文明进步的
It is also a driving force for the advancement of human civilization.
对未来来说的话呢，实现经济社会可持续发展的这个能源领域的清洁低碳发展是尤为紧迫的。
And also, there's an urgent need for us to realize clean and low carbon development. In recent years, China has been making enormous efforts to adjust energy structure and optimization of the energy structure. And we are shifting from the heavy reliance on coal, and our energy consumption is becoming more diverse. In 2020, China's coal consumption accounted for 56.8%, down from 72.4% in 2005. And non-fossil fuel accounted for 15.9%. And China's renewable energy is growing rapidly. China's non-fossil fuel power accounted for 98 million kilowatt, which is number one in the world for 6 years in a row. By 2030, non-fossil fuel will account for 25% of primary energy consumption, and we will be installing 1.2 billion kilowatt of wind power and solar power. President Xi further announced that we will support developing countries' low carbon energy development and will not build build coal power generation projects abroad. China will continue to control the consumption of coal and redouble efforts on developing renewable energies and build a new power system that relies on renewable energy. And China is also the world's biggest manufacturer of clean energy equipment. We will advance international cooperation on that and help other developing countries to shift towards clean and low carbon energy structure at a faster pace. China, as a developing country, faces multiple tasks of improving people's livelihood, growing the economy, and eradicating poverty. And we face many realistic challenges that cannot be addressed overnight. We need to be systematic and holistic and be prepared for all risks and ensure the security of energy supply chains and guarantee people's lives so as to respond to the risks that could arise in realizing green transformation. Thank you. Next question.
中间第三排。
谢谢。凤凰卫视的记者，我们想请问中国打算采取什么措施来加强应对气候变化的履约和透明度的建设？谢谢。
Enhancing its capacity of honoring commitment and increase transparency in addressing climate change.
好，主要想请问一下，中国准备采取什么措施来加强
China will
应对气候
do
变
to
化
strengthen
履约
its
和透明度建设？
capacity to honor its commitment and increase transparency in responding to climate change. I'll give the floor to Director General Sun.
感谢记者朋友提问。
Thank you for your question.
关于这个话题呢，还是要从公约说起。
Let me start with the convention.
全球共同应对气候变化应该建立在全球
Global efforts against climate change must be based on unity and cooperation of all countries.
这个关于各方要提交国家润湿气体清单，要加强透明度建设的这些规定。
the convention have asked countries to submit its list of emission reductions and other materials. This is very important for the implementation of the convention. And the Paris Agreement has laid out more specific requirements so that countries will take more effective and transparent measures against climate change. On transparency, the Convention also grants developing countries a certain degree of flexibility and asks developed countries to provide funding and capacity building support. China, as the world's largest developing country, has seen its climate action transparency drawn a lot of attention. So far, China has submitted 3 reports of its national information and 2 updated reports. That means the list for 5 years. These lists are credible and science-based. They are recognized by the international community. The counting system of greenhouse gas is the foundation for formulating these lists. Through years of efforts, we have put in place a basic accounting system covering different mechanisms. As for businesses, we have released about over 20 methods and guidelines for the statistical work. At the leading office of carbon peak and carbon neutrality, China has recently set up a working group on the statistics. China will further improve such system, strengthen our capacity, and ensure that this counting system can meet the new requirements of the Paris Agreement, and see that China will make even fresher progress in the governance capacity in responding to climate change. With Shenzhen TV, it's also about COP26. What does China expect from this COP26?
Thank you. COP26 is the first conference of parties after the Paris Agreement. China advocates that this conference should first send a message of upholding multilateralism and multilateral rules. All parties need to implement the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement and principles including common but differentiated responsibilities, as well as the system of nationally determined contributions. On the basis of respecting countries' conditions, all countries need to contribute to global response to climate change. China stands ready to work with all parties to make progress in the following major areas. First, completing the negotiations of the Paris Rulebook. It has been 6 years since the Paris Agreement was reached, but we are yet to finish the negotiations on the implementation guidelines, including Article 6. The international community have high hopes for the guidelines to be completed. The conference should work actively to conclude the negotiations on Article 6, which is a foundation and prerequisite for the full and effective implementation of the agreement, as well as an important indicator for the global community's trust in the agreement. Second, developing countries have long been concerned about financial support, technological support, and capacity building support. There should be progress at this conference. Previously, developing countries technology and financial issues have long felt disappointed about developing countries' efforts. And people have misgivings about developed countries trying to shift blame in emission reduction over to developing countries. In the course of implementation of Paris Agreement, these issues concern political trust as well as the efforts of developing countries to address climate change. The conference should make arrangements and fully advance ambitions on support, mitigation, and adaptation. Third, we need to highlight implementation. We need to advocate all parties to implement the goals and turn the goals into specific policies and measures, and avoid making the proposal of goals into empty slogans. For example, developed countries must fill in the gap of $100 billion every year. This is a major issue concerning the trust between developed and developing countries. Various developed countries, without honoring their commitments, continue to raise their climate goals. For that, parties need to realize that goals that do not focus on real actions are empty slogans. Only by honoring Paris Agreement's goals and targets can we address the climate crisis and climate challenges. If there's no more question, this will be the end of the press conference. Thank you, spokespersons, and thank you all.